Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the psychological reality of low self-esteem. We hear the phrase self-esteem tossed around all the time, like it's just some simple buzzword. But we're going way past that today. We're going to rely on a structured cognitive behavioral approach to uncover exactly how it develops, what hidden engines actually keep it running, and most importantly, how we can rewrite our own internal software. So if you've ever felt like your own mind is literally working against you, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
To kick things off, I want you to ask yourself a super simple but honestly profound question. Do you give as much weight to your strengths as you do your weaknesses? Think about it. Do you quickly brush past a compliment but then obsess over a tiny mistake for days on end? How you answer this is a huge indicator of the internal lens through which you view yourself. And it really sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack.
Moving on to Section 1, Spotting Low Self-Esteem, More Than Just Feeling Sad.
Because to fix a problem, right, we first have to recognize it. And the thing is, low self-esteem isn't just a single emotion. It's not just feeling a bit down one afternoon. It is this complex, interconnected web of reactions that impacts literally every facet of our daily lives. As you can see, it usually starts right there in our thoughts. It's a constant, exhausting loop of self-criticism, self-blame, and self-doubt. You might find yourself completely ignoring your own successes or strengths, but then taking a hyper-focused magnifying glass to any tiny criticism or mistake. It's an incredibly biased way to think about yourself.
And when your thoughts are constantly criticizing you like that, well, it makes total sense that they snowball into heavy emotional feelings. We're talking persistent sadness, anxiety, lingering guilt, deeply rooted shame, and just a sense of ongoing frustration, maybe even anger. That is a heavy, heavy emotional backpack to carry around every single day.
Naturally, all those internal struggles eventually spill outward into our behavior. Low self-esteem actually causes us to stop looking after ourselves properly. We start avoiding challenges or new opportunities because, well, we just assume we're going to fail anyway. We hesitate to speak out, we avoid eye contact, and paradoxically, we might even fall into the absolutely exhausting trap of perfectionism. Working entirely too hard just to prove to everyone we aren't failures. It even manifests physically, right in our body state. The mind and body are so deeply connected, so living with that constant internal critic leads to real, chronic physical tension. You might experience unexplainable tiredness, lethargy, or have a really hard time sleeping. Your body is basically reacting to the constant stress of your own negative self-assessment. And finally, it dramatically alters our relationships and how we interact with our environment. We become painfully self-conscious, constantly worrying way too much about what other people think of us. This usually leads to trying entirely too hard to please everyone around us or developing this painful oversensitivity to even the most constructive, helpful criticism. Which brings us to Section 2. Where does it originate? Looking back to move forward. So, having seen all those different areas it affects, why on earth do our minds do this to us? Well, if you picture a young child just sitting there, absorbing their environment way before they have the cognitive ability to rationalize any of it, that's exactly how we form our initial ideas about ourselves. Because of this, low self-esteem is actually an entirely understandable reaction to our past experiences. Think of it like a computer program. It is a perfectly logical output based on the input we received at the time. Whether it stems from physical or emotional neglect, excessive criticism, being bullied, or honestly simply not receiving enough basic affection or praise, if you grew up experiencing those things, your young mind naturally concluded that you must be the problem. It makes sense, right? It's a very normal response to very difficult early experiences. Okay, Section 3, the core engine. Beliefs are not facts. Now we are getting to the absolute psychological core of this whole explainer. The engine that keeps these terrible feelings running is made up of what psychologists call central beliefs. These are those fundamental, deep-seated beliefs about yourself. We're talking things like, I'm unlovable, or I'm just not good enough, or I'm completely unacceptable. These central beliefs sit at the very bottom of your psychological operating system, secretly pulling the strings and influencing exactly how you think, feel, and behave in almost every single situation. Let's look at a powerful example from the source material about a young boy named Tim. Tim was just 3 years old. His parents were going through a major crisis, so they were constantly stressed and angry. They basically had zero tolerance for his normal, lively toddler behavior, and they ended up shouting at him constantly. Now, obviously, a 3-year-old isn't old enough to understand his parents' complex marital problems, right? Instead, his young mind internalized a completely false central belief: my lively nature makes me unacceptable.
And this brilliantly illustrates what is probably our absolute biggest takeaway from this entire explainer. Your central beliefs are just opinions based on outdated experiences. They are not absolute facts. 3-year-old Tim's belief, it was literally an opinion formed by a toddler just trying to make sense of a really stressful house. And the beautiful thing about opinions is that they can absolutely be changed. Let's move to Section 4, What Keeps It Going? The Trap of Our Own Minds. So, if these beliefs are just outdated, completely inaccurate opinions we formed when we were young, why do we hold on to them so tightly into adulthood? Why do they stick around even after we move out, get jobs, and surround ourselves with supportive people? Well, the first culprit here is negative biases. As neuroscience tells us, the human brain is essentially like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. It's an automatic mental filter. We view, make sense of, and remember daily events in ways that perfectly match our existing negative beliefs. Think about it. If your central belief is, I'm a failure, your brain will automatically brush off your recent promotion at work, but it will hyper-focus on that one single typo you made in an email yesterday. Your brain literally filters reality to match the negative story you already believe. Crazy, right? The second, and honestly, perhaps the most damaging reason we stay stuck, is that we invent what are called rules for living. Because, let's face it, carrying around a belief like I am unlovable is incredibly painful. So to cope, we subconsciously create these rigid rules, self-defeating behaviors, and totally extreme standards. These rules give us a temporary, totally false sense of control. But in reality, they are the exact things keeping the problem alive and kicking. You can see right here how clearly this trap maps out in everyday life. Look at how a painful central belief forces these folks into exhausting, self-sabotaging rules just to make it through the day. Tim believes he's unacceptable, right? So his rule is to hide his true self. Sandra believes she's unlovable, so her rule is to tirelessly please everyone around her. Alan believes he's stupid, so his rule is to just not try at all. Let's zoom in on Rachel's trap for a second. Her underlying belief is, I'm not good enough. So her coping rule is to do absolutely everything perfectly at work. Now, living by this rule forces her to pour literally all her energy into her job. This leaves her highly stressed, completely exhausted, and totally neglecting the rest of her life. And the bitter irony here, the moment she inevitably fails to meet her own impossible, perfectionist standards, it just reinforces her original belief that she's a failure. The very rule she designed to protect herself is actually the thing destroying her. And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Rewriting the Software. Because here is the good news. Once you can actually see the hidden mechanics of this trap, you gain the psychological power to start dismantling the whole thing. You can actually start rewriting your own software. So, as we pull together everything we've learned today, I really want you to remember these vital takeaways from our source material. First off, stop judging yourself. Your feelings make total, complete sense based on your history. Second, your central beliefs are merely outdated opinions. They are definitely not undeniable facts. Third, it's your mind's negative biases and those exhausting rules for living that are keeping you stuck right now in the present. And finally, because beliefs are just opinions, you absolutely possess the power to rewrite them. By recognizing your own negative biases right when they happen and actively challenging those rigid, perfectionist rules for living we talked about, you can finally start stepping away from that harsh mirror of self-criticism. The ultimate goal of all this cognitive behavioral work is simple. Replace that mean internal critic with genuine, unconditional acceptance of who you are right now. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct question to reflect on, and hopefully it can be a catalyst for your own internal software update. Looking at your own life, your own daily stressors, and your own habits, what outdated, exhausting rule for living are you finally ready to rewrite today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you to take that very first step towards rewriting your own story.